So here the Targ player is deciding what to do. He can't really sneak by Tyrion right now. Tyrion's really a strength 7 stealth Tricon, so he has to kind of play around them. He has to make challenges that'll either make the opponent kneel out or the Lancer player won't want to defend. And he also has to keep in mind that there is a claim 2 challenge coming his way. He can eat one in the claim with Maester Aemon, but the other is definitely going to go off. So here he swings. The Lancer player is going to defend but not win the challenge. So Targ is going to get to draw a card off of AGoT, but he does maintain all of his icons, as he currently has a power, intrigue, and military if he wants to all 3 icons. The Lancer player did gain a link and put a link on Maester Aemon. So there you can see is where his multifacetedness will start to come into play. Either being used to save and activate things like the Black Iron link, or not being used to save and drawing later in the turn. Now, the Targ player has to think about the intrigue icon because he has to be able to manage it to protect his hand. It's a 2 claim. If the intrigue challenge goes through, a lot of the Targ player's tricks are kind of going to be coming out of his hand. That's one of the disadvantages of not increasing his board position. If he isn't able to protect his hand this turn, he's going to have less ability next turn to play more cards to protect it, to increase his board position. So we'll see how he plays this out. It's also dependent on what the Lancer player chooses to do, because the order in which he does his challenges could dictate things. He could forego the power challenge or forego the military challenge to make sure he pushes the intrigue through. Actually, he's doing so right now. He's going to swing for an intrigue, strength 10, to make sure that the Targ player can't do any shenanigans. Now, that's not necessarily true that he can't do any shenanigans, but strength 10's generally difficult to stop. He has to throw down a lot of stuff there, and with a hand of only 2 cards, he's going to lose something he probably doesn't want to lose. So that goes through unopposed. Pretty good choice. It allows him to take dominance. It's not like he was going to stop it, so he doesn't really want to drop anything in, I'm sure, as he wants to protect his hand. Gets the Visenius Hill, and I missed the other card. So now all that's left is the military challenge, and he can defend the military challenge if he wants. He can let it go unopposed, but the Lancer player chooses to go to Dom. He has a 5 for Dom. The Targ player obviously wins Dom with 7 because he has Aemon standing, the Advisor of the Crown standing, and the Dragon Knight standing. So not necessarily a waste of retaliation because he got to pull out 2 cards from the Targ player's hand, which is pretty big considering how few cards were in the Targ player's hand to begin with. Now you can see the Targ player is going to go with Valar here. It's pretty early, but he's going to have decent board position with Aemon saving and having links on him. But that's quite an early Valar. I guess he feels it's best to do it now, wipe out Tyrion, because Tyrion is a very powerful card. Every turn he's going to get something that's really a negative for the Targ player. So I kind of feel he was forced into that. You know, Valor against the Shadows deck is tough because you know he has 2 cards in Shadows. You don't know what they are, but you can almost assume they're characters or control cards. So the Targ player did get to save his AGoT, which is going to actually be a nice plus to this Valor. So he got Tyrion off the board. Has no claim, so the Lancer player will have a little chance to come back. But he maintained his draw source. He has a card in Shadows, so he's doing only a little worse right now than the Lancer player is. So we'll see what he does with his gold. In addition, obviously anything he plays is going to be big enough to win a challenge if the Targ player does not play anything. Oh, that's rough. And enslaved on Maester Aemon. Oh, that's harsh for a Maester deck. Now the Lancer player has control of whether or not the links get triggered, and he also has control of a card that pretty much is pure card advantage. So whatever card advantage that the Targ deck had, kind of just went out the window because the Lancer player doesn't really have to defend military challenges anymore. And just that's huge denial. He can't get his links off at this point unless he plays another Maester. And he's not going to be able to protect that Maester because it's not Maester Aemon. It'll be easily killed. So that was a huge card there. That was a huge enslave. That could really turn the game if the Targ player cannot draw into any attachment destruction. A nice plus is, with him in control of the Maester, if he had a tin link, the attachment destruction can only be played on Maester Aemon, and it's gone. So there you saw the Targ player played Meraxes, which is nice for card advantage. But here, the Lannister player just keeps knocking cards out. An intrigue challenge to knock him down a card. He can't defend the military challenge necessarily well. Can't see how many cards are in shadows right now, but Jogo's going to be able to stealth by the weaponsmith. Here, I'm somewhat... Oh, that makes sense. I was going to say, I'm somewhat surprised he chose to swing with the carrion bird, but it's only 3 strength, so it couldn't have actually defeated Jogo, and obviously it kills Jogo, much to my ignorance. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So, carrion bird actually kills Jogo, removing yet another piece of Targ's card advantage. So right now, all he has for card advantage is the Meraxes and any cards that he draws into that might provide him some. Whereas the Lannister player has a King's Landing, which he's going to be drawing off of every time a card comes out of Shadows, which should be every turn because he's running a Shadows deck. This is tough board position for the Targ player, obviously. His Valor's gone, so the Lannister player can kind of do whatever he wants. He can dictate the flow of the game now. Ooh, you're seeing a Fear of Winter, so there's your Lannister restricted card. It's a nice restricted card of the Shadows deck because he knows, while he can only play 1 card from his hand, whether it be into Shadows or into play, he can take any of those cards out of Shadows. So the Targ player is really on lockdown while he is not. It's a nice touch. It's a good card for a Shadows deck if you want to control the tempo of the game when you know you can bring cards out of Shadows. It's not particularly high gold, but Lannister tends to be able to offset that. So this is going to be somewhat interesting. Most of the board position is in the Lannister player's favor. He doesn't necessarily have more resources as the Targ player has influence, but can the Targ player draw into cards that require his influence is questionable. So the Lannister player is up on draw, he's up on gold, he's up on influence, and he has good board advantage in the fact that he has Maester Aemon, an intrigue icon, a military icon with stealth, and all of those cards are boosted. This is really, really an uphill battle for the Targaryen player if he's able to win at all at this point. He's going to need some amazing draws and really play them well to win. He's got a 2-claim plot, but he can't do anything with it because his character's going to die. So there you can see he plays a Varys into Shadows. That'll actually turn out pretty nicely for him, as Varys will be able to pop the Silent Sisters, which is currently the only intrigue icon that Lannister has on his board. So Varys should save him some of his cards, so that next turn, when the Fear of Winter is worn off, he'll be able to do something. But we'll see what comes out of Shadows on the Lanni player's side. He doesn't know it. A good action for him would be to play an intrigue icon. So that may be something to consider for future. When you only have 1 intrigue icon on the board and it's an ally, you might want another intrigue icon on the board. Interesting takeaway. Not something I personally would have thought of myself, but certainly something you'll see just from the way this turn could play out. But the Targ player did not take Varys out of Shadows, so he actually is going to lose two cards here. He can't do anything about that because he can't play any more cards due to Fear of Winter. So this is really a dominating turn here. He's going to push through challenges for power, get cards from the Targ player's hand, and take no damage from the retaliation. He's even going to win dominance here because of his cards. So he's drawing cards from King's Landing every turn, twice a turn in most situations. So this is pretty rough board position for Targ. We'll see what plots are left from the Lannister player, but there's not a ton that the Targ player can play here and really come ahead. The threat from the north it's not necessarily useless, but it's so difficult for it to be productive. So here we have the Targ player playing a City of Soldiers. There's actually no character that can die to it, so the effect fizzles. All of the Lancer players' characters are above 2 strength. And then the Lancer player with City Besieged pops Meraxis and the Gold Road. City Besieged is a nice card. It should see a lot more play with House of Dreams because it's one of the few cards that can affect any cards you choose with the House of Dreams. And especially in a city deck, it's a huge advantage for you. You can pretty much get rid of whatever you want because you're only going to have a bunch of city plots in your plot pile. So it's just kind of a bang. It's good gold, good initiative, and it destroys locations. Just a nice, clean, easy card in a city deck. So here you can see the Targ player played a refugee. He's just got an uphill battle though. If he plays any cards, there's a good chance they're going to die. We do know he has Avaris and Shadows, but there he decides to pass it over to the Lancer player. And the Lancer player just, look at all the cards in his hand compared to the Targ player. He has the card advantage, and he just has tons of cards in hands. Plus you can see he has a Lanceport Brothel, so the Targ player hasn't had any cards to play, so it's almost not worth playing a Brothel. There he enslaves a refugee. Oh man. That's just unfair at this point. His one claim soak card is now gone. You can see an Alchemist Guildhall in Shadows, so if the Targ player does play anything, it's gonna get knelled. This is silly. This is very silly. He takes out Young Griff from Shadows, which allows him to bring Varys out of Shadows as well, as Young Griff can bring another card out of Shadows when he comes out. And there you can see he finally discards the Silent Sisters. Doesn't do a ton. The Lancer player can still push through the military challenge. There you can see the Lancer player brought the Alchemist Guildhall out of Shadows, thinking he could kneel something, but because Alchemist Guildhall only kneels cards without Shadows, he can't kneel out any of the characters, and he's forced to kneel a C. Not a bad move. That's one less influence that the Targ player has to deal with, but obviously he was hoping to kneel a character so that he could easily take one out with the kneel, not have to deal with that challenge. He does have 2 claim coming at him. So that was a pretty bad misplay. He reduced all the strength of his characters by 1 and didn't get a kneel effect. But I don't suspect it'll come back to bite him too much. He's got such a used hand that a 2 intrigue challenge is almost pointless. Is it better for the power challenge here just to kind of keep yourself in the game? I don't know. It's an interesting consideration is sometimes if you're trying to extend the game, if you think you have an advantage, extend the game rather than doing damage to your opponent, you may just go for the power challenge to actually extend the game and give yourself a chance. In this case where he already has 8 or 9 cards in hand, or at least at the start of his turn, and he has so much draw, extending the game will benefit him as much as you, so the intrigue challenge is probably the better choice.